Legal analyst for Midas Touch, and she hosts the Mistrial podcast. Dina, first, I want to ask you about the resignation of this prosecution witness. What are you thinking about this?
I mean, the timing of it, of course, is going to just increase the social media chatter about this trial. Really, whether or not it will affect the case depends on if his resignation has to do with his testimony, in particular, whether or not he gave any factual errors in giving his testimony. There is a wide latitude in terms of opinions. I mean, this is why you call it a battle of the experts, and every expert has a slightly different opinion. If for some reason his resignation was tied to his testimony, but it had to do with perhaps his institution he worked for not concurring with his opinion, that doesn't necessarily help the defense. It is difficult to have expert testimony be the basis of a new trial. There has to be some sort of factual error that really would make a difference in a case.
And Dina, what did you make of jurors asking to see this physical evidence, the prescription pill bottles and the knife that Clancy used?
I hope it gives everybody some confidence that jurors take these types of cases very seriously. I mean, again, there's a lot of online chatter about somehow people having a, predisposed opinion and a verdict in advance. And I think that this should give everybody confidence that they're being meticulous. They're evaluating their evidence. The fact that the evidence has to do with her harming herself and not her children perhaps goes to whether or not they are indeed trying to look into the prosecution's theory that she wasn't actually trying to kill herself. Perhaps it is trying to decide whether or not they agree with that theory. But I think at the end of the day, we should always be glad to see this kind of diligent, thorough process from a jury, especially with this high profile nature of a case like this.
And Dina, jurors have a few things they are considering here, right? They can consider charges of first-degree murder, second-degree murder, or manslaughter. Those come with varying degrees of punishment. Obviously, that takes a lot of discernment. And also, by the way, they could find her not criminally responsible, which is, of course, what the defense is arguing they should. How does that variety of options complicate their deliberations?
You are hitting the nail on the head. It's not a matter of did she kill the children. There are so many variations here. And I think that the fact that Massachusetts in particular, it's only one of 3 states where the prosecution has the burden to prove that she is actually sane, that she's criminally responsible for the deaths. And at the same time, they have the broader interpretation of insanity under the model penal code. That helps her. I cannot overstate how much that helps her in this particular case, because usually when a defendant asserts a defense, such as insanity or self-defense, the burden shifts to the defendant to prove that she was insane at that time. But in this case, that burden stays with the prosecution. So the prosecution has to not only put forward, like you said, if they were proving premeditation, they have to prove premeditation. Or the jury can say, well, we don't believe it's premeditated, but we believe it's manslaughter. They have to prove each element of whichever charge and all the charges they were really trying to convince the jury. Plus, they also then now have to prove that she was sane at the time. That burden shift is so incredibly significant. And it is really then not a matter of whether or not the defense medical experts proved she was insane. It's whether or not the prosecution's medical experts proved she was sane.
So what happens if she's found not guilty due to a lack of criminal responsibility? Does she just get to go home?
I mean, then no, she doesn't just get to go home. You are then put into an institution because you are considered insane by the law. So it's not as if she gets to walk, but that does also depend on which of the various murder charges she is found responsible for. Because if you're found responsible for manslaughter versus premeditation, you are talking about different levels of time of incarceration, even if it's in a psychiatric hospital.
The jury here is made up of 9 women and 3 men. And we know from this case just the discussions that it has prompted outside of the courtroom that a lot of women are bringing some personal experiences to this. We know that, right? I wonder, and the 4th person's a woman, does that in your mind, potentially change the dynamic of the jury?
It's interesting because typically you do not want a majority of women on a case such as this. Women tend to judge women more harshly, and men judge men more harshly, regardless of what the alleged crime is. But because we do see on social media, which is a little bit of a microcosm of jurors, women in particular and mothers in particular really sympathizing with her in a way that I have never seen in any case before where a mother's on trial for killing her children. Usually women are across the board much more judging her much more harshly. In this case, we see the reverse. So I think the fact that she has a majority of women is not going to hurt her like it otherwise would.
Adina Dahl, appreciate you sharing your point of view. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.